I'm Tony González from Made in Metal, and we are here talking to Joe Satriani, who will release his new CD next April 8th, entitled The Elephants of Mars. How are you, Joe?
I'm doing great today. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Let me tell you that your new CD will be released the day of my birthday.
We arranged it that way.
I'm going to take it as a present.
Oh, good, good. Happy birthday.
Yes, thank you very much. My first question is, do you remember all the songs you have written?
You mean like, can I play all of them like from memory?
Yes.
I think certainly the overall composition and melodies, I definitely can. I do have an unusual ability to remember things like that. You know, remembering where I put my car keys and things like that, that takes work. Yeah, I have to practice good habits for that. But music is easy for me to remember. But however, I think the intricacies of the one take, you know, improvised solos, those are the hardest things to remember, because I don't really work out, you know, my solos on the recordings. They are, you know, moments where we capture me just reacting in a natural way. And if it sounds like it's got the right energy to it, we leave it on the album. And those are the hardest things to remember because they were unrehearsed, unwritten. And I have to go back, and let's say if I'm going to play a song that's 30 years old, and we're going to put it into the live show, I'll go back and listen to it carefully because I've forgotten, you know, those elements. But of course, the fans may have been listening to it for 30 years and they know every note, and they expect to see it, you know, live on stage. So that's when I have to go back and really sort of study, you know, the quirkiness that you forget, you know, over time.
Yes, I hope that you can remember the names of the songs that are in the new CD, because I'm going to talk about some songs. And let me tell you something. If I have time, I'm going to ask you about all songs. But if you don't remember, I won't be upset because I understand what you say. Yes.
That's okay. That's all right.
Yes, because in the new CD, the song Elephant of Mars is very catchy. Are you thinking of playing it on tour?
Yes, certainly. Every time we go out on tour, you know, what we do is we make sure that we're bringing new music to the stage, and to help celebrate not only what we are so excited about, but also the fans that are coming. There usually, for every show that we do, there's a big group of people that are new fans. They don't know my old records, they just know the new one, and they want to see it happen live. So there's that segment. Then there's that other segment of the audience that maybe don't know who I am that well as far as new music goes. And this will be the first and maybe only time they get a chance to see me. And so they really want to see me do what we would call the hits. In other words, the most popular songs over the last few decades. So we make sure there's a part of the set where we're going to play things like Satch Boogie, Surfing with the Aliens, Summer Song, you know, If I Could Fly, things that are always like on the top 10 of, you know, Apple Music or Spotify or Pandora, something like that. And then we like to take another section of the show and we play songs for the hardcore fans that have seen me maybe 20 times and they really want to hear us play something we've never played before. So we make sure with every tour, there's always a few songs that are special events for them. And that's how we do it. And it seems to work really well.
Yes. So one of my favorite songs in this CD is Faceless, because I feel that it has a special feeling. Do you feel the same?
Boy, you know, I made sure that every song I put on this record was an extremely personal, truthful, you know, inspiration from me. I had the luxury this time of not being rushed in the writing, in the performing, in the mixing. We were afforded privacy and time to make this album, which is something you never have when you're making a traditional rock and roll album. You're always, crowded into a studio with a really tight schedule. Every minute costs thousands of dollars and you're kind of rushed, but this time around, I could take a song like Faceless that was really very important to get right, to be able to try to have people understand that sometimes all of us, I think, feel that we are misunderstood and not seen for our true selves with the people around us, the people closest to us, or by our neighborhood, our community, our city, our state, our country, the world at large, the universe. I think there's probably everybody at one time has looked at their loved one and said, you're not seeing the true me, or has, looked up at the stars at night and asked the universe, recognize me for, the unique soul that I am. So that's a big task to take on as a songwriter when you don't have lyrics to work with. So I needed the privacy to be able to bare my soul, through my guitar and get it recorded. And so I'm so happy that I've gotten such great response from that song because it's, it's super melodic. It's not a flashy kind of song that guitar players generally like to throw out there. It's a very emotional piece of music.
Well, there are two songs that I consider that has a relationship. Maybe you will tell me that not. One is a Bluefoot Groovy, because I imagine in some part of the song that the guitar follow lines that could be sung by a voice. And then, yes, when I was thinking on it, I listened Dance of the Sport, and you include our woman voice.
Yes, yeah. Well, each of the songs on the album, they have a really unique, interesting, complicated story. Now, I can say that Bluefoot Groovy as a song is one of those songs that I would say I'm not embarrassed to write a song about a simple, upbeat, positive subject. I never discriminate. Like I'll write a song about there being, sentient elephants on Mars, about, love and death and all kinds of things, loneliness and, from science fiction to reality. But if I feel like writing a song about just feeling good about yourself and thinking you're all that and and you want to show it to the world, you want to kind of, we used to say, strut your stuff. That's kind of an old phrase. I'll write that too. And so I did actually write a song thinking about my good friend Sammy Hagar, because I thought, well, this could be really good for Chickenfoot. And but as the song progressed, it got more and more Joe-like, you know what I mean? But it still had elements that I thought Sammy would love to sing this, because he's a really great R&B kind of singer. He doesn't show the world that much of it, but I know from hanging around with him that he's a great R&B singer and can sing that kind of rock and roll. So that's, I'm happy you picked up on that, because that's actually what I was trying to do, was to try to vocalize, especially the chorus, where I imagine Sammy singing something like, I can make you feel good, I can make you happy. And I never finished the lyrics enough to show him. So it kind of wound up in the instrumental category for me. The Dance of the Spores, that is such a funny concept, right? I was thinking about how, even though on this level, on our level, we worry about like our computers, our phones, there's politics, there's a pandemic, there's your job, your rent, your mortgage, whatever it might be, relationships, all this stuff that humans are always concerned about. But I was thinking, on a more microscopic level of life, there are these other organisms, and they're having the time of their lives because they don't have to worry about war and politics and conflicting religions, and they don't have mortgages and rent to pay and jobs to find. They're just spores, and all they do is recreate and have a great time. And I thought, wouldn't it be funny if there was a movie about that, and it'd have to be some kind of a soundtrack of some kind, that perhaps focused on the menacing attitude of it, our perception of how frightening it might be that there's spores that are multiplying by the trillions underneath our feet. But then the celebration that they would be having, as if you were able to go down to their level and you could see them having like a circus-like party in the middle of the night, and that's what those breakdown sections represent, where you hear the Bulgarian women's chorus and the Mexican horns and my guitar and everything all mixed together. It's like a celebration of how much fun they're having, because they don't have to worry about all the things we do.
Oh, interesting. So let me tell you that I have never seen you as a nervous person, a stressed person. So to me, I always consider that the more complicated songs to play are the shredding songs. For example, I think that in the CD, Sailing the Seas of Ganymede is the most complex song. Am I right?
It is very complex, very unusual. I'd say that's one of the most unusual songs I have ever written, especially because the melody is, before that the cut time chorus comes in, it's really weird. It's like you don't really know what key it's in, and it just kind of floats around with this hyper loop going on. But the funny thing about that song was that it was written and had to be sort of adjusted once Ray put his first solo on. Like the first solo you hear, it's actually Ray kind of playing like me, and he put his solo in the wrong spot. But once we heard it, we thought, well, we'll just leave it there, and then I'll write a new second half of the song to accommodate there needing to be more guitar solo in there. So then it was really a lot of fun, because I was able to get more syncopated and then play some really crazy stuff towards the end there, but still support the idea of, a ship. You're all alone on this ship, and you're sailing these gigantic waves that have crests 200 feet in the air, and you're in some subterranean ocean on a moon somewhere out in space. I know it's a fantastical idea, but that's what kind of drove me to write in a more complex way than I had before, because I thought the subject matter really required it.
Let me tell you a story. Maybe 5 years or so, I was in New York, and I booked a hotel in Little Italy, in this area. Yes. And then I discovered that there was an Italian-American museum. And I saw there in the museum a list of famous Italian people from New York. I don't remember if your name was on the list. But for example, when I knew that I was having this interview, I checked on the internet, this museum, and I didn't find your name. However, I found Tom Morello on the list. Yes. So maybe Tom Morello considered himself an African American more than an Italian American. However, I have seen that you always works with Italian musicians. Mm-hmm. Yes. So did you know something about the Italian American Museum in New York?
No. I assume that there are many.
Yes.
And, so I don't know. I mean, I don't really concern myself with things like that. And it's always great when people, celebrate themselves. But, I know that, in testing shows that I'm actually quite an interesting European mix. So I don't take those things very seriously. I'm a human being. I'm a musician, a citizen of the world, and I certainly although I love that part of my Italian heritage, I certainly don't seek to be listed as a famous ethnic person, you know.
Joe, forget it. I know that you have ego zero.
Okay.
Ego zero. But tell me, I remember that I read, did you have the opportunity to teach Tom Morello?
No. I know Tom, but I've never. No, we grew up in different cities and at different times. Actually, I'm a little bit older than Tom, so I never got a chance to hang out with him until I met him after he was already in Rage Against the Machine. I mean, we've done a few things together and played on stage together, once or twice. So
yes. So now we go to the old songs. Let's see if you remember in Professor Sachafunculos and the Mysterium of Rock, you write and play a song called Andalucia.
Yeah.
So this song related to Andalusia, Spain, or the flamenco?
All right. So, well, it's, I was doing a tour around that before I recorded that album. And I was really thinking about the experiences that I had, not only in Spain, but also, if you can imagine, in Turkey. Mm-hmm. And that album, also has a song that was dedicated to a great Anatolian folk musician. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about, how in modern times, somebody, an American, grows up in New York and learns how to play and travels the world and has all these exotic experiences through music. And that perhaps in days of old, there would have been this kind of thing where, musicians from southern Spain would somehow mix it up with a Turkish musician, or even in a more fantastical way, a heavy metal guitar player from the 21st century would somehow go back into early southern Spain's history and mix it up with musicians in the countryside. And I was really thinking about this in a fantasy way. And so that's why I wrote that particular song. It wasn't about any particular modern, let's say, flamenco musician. I was really relating to the sound and the music of southern Spain in general, rather than specifically like one musician or just guitar. And of course, since not, all of us on that album are, grew up in the United States, we are imagining, our influences, our Spanish music influences, and what we hope to do is to pay a tribute to honor the uniqueness of the style, but to interpret it in our own way, which I think is it's funny. I thought about that because it came up that maybe I should get a flamenco guitar and try to play flamenco. And I thought, no, that would be wrong, to try to kind of steal that. So I thought, I don't want to appropriate that, what those Spanish musicians have achieved. I want to reflect it. I want to honor it. So I'm going to do it with my instruments. And that was an important step. And I think that's what I told the rest of the guys in the band is like, let's be ourselves, but let's honor the music.
I remember that I started listening to you in a Cuban radio. And in this radio show, the man who introduced the musician, from time to time, he plays a song for you that is called simply Rubina, from Not of This Earth. No?
Yeah.
And I remember that in 1992, in the Extremis, you play a song called Rubina's Blue Sky Happiness.
Yes.
Yes. But for example, but after 1992, I haven't seen another Rubina song. So Rubina is not your inspiration anymore?
No, she's my constant inspiration. Rubina is my wife, obviously, and I love her dearly, and I think she inspires me to write all kinds of music. But I don't always put her name in the title. I think perhaps that's what's misleading you. So there have been plenty of songs I've written about her, but her name doesn't appear in the title.
And another short story is that I was checking your music and I saw that you have a song called CC Song.
Yeah.
Yes, and then I go and say, oh, Joe Satriani is inspired in CC Top. And I'm going to play the song, and the song is really calm down. Yes, and then I discovered that CC is part of the family too, because he plays sax or trumpet in a record, no?
Yes, he's my son. We've made a documentary film together, Beyond the Supernova. He's in the past few years, he's done a lot of really amazing videos for me, including the latest one, Sahara. Mm-hmm. And yes, that song, ZZ Song, was actually written for him before he was born. You know, it was a calming kind of a song to play for him while he was still inside his mother's womb. Yeah, so I decided to put that on the Crystal Planet album.
In your records, there is part of your own history as a person. You don't need your name in an Italian-American museum.
No, I don't.
Yes, your name is written in the story of music already. I'm a member of the Spanish Deep Purple fan club. And they remember you with pleasure because you were in Spain playing with Deep Purple in June 1994. So I'm not going to ask you why you didn't continue on Deep Purple, because I know, and the answer was really a logical answer. Okay.
Well, you know, they really needed a permanent member, and I was not feeling that I could devote my life to being a permanent member of Deep Purple while I had just finally arrived at having a solid solo career. Mm-hmm. Something that was really a gift. I mean, my fans around the world have gifted me a solo career where they helped me play instrumental music, my own compositions, on albums and on stages around the world. And I didn't want to turn my back on that. But I knew if I joined Deep Purple, I'd have to really leave that behind and dedicate myself to being part of this British band. And I just thought, you know, I'm an American guitar player, and I'm a big fan of Ritchie Blackmore, and I just couldn't get around that, you know. So I had to choose my own path. I felt really bad about it, but when I sat down with Roger, actually, we were in Barcelona at the time, and we sat down and had a long meeting about it. And from that meeting in Barcelona, we came up with the name Steve Morse, and it seemed like the perfect fit because Steve is such an all-round amazing guitar player, very prolific writer. And it turned out they were looking for that. They were looking for somebody that was very different from Ritchie Blackmore. Yeah, I actually, I think it was Roger who came up with the name and asked me what I thought. And I just remember thinking, as soon as I heard it, I thought, oh, that's perfect. You know, Steve would be great.
Thank you very much for your time. I really enjoy this conversation. Remember that you have concerts here in Spain that are waiting for you.
Yes. Thank you, Tony. Thank you very much. It's been nice to talk to you.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Yeah.